The gunshot shattered the evening calm as Sophia Bell ran for her life across the dusty stage, her heart pounding like a stallion's hooves against the wooden planks. She had come to Santa Rosa, California in 1875 with dreams of bringing Shakespeare to the frontier, not to die at the hands of bandits who had surrounded the modest town hall where her traveling theater company performed. "Nobody move," shouted a gruff voice from the back of the makeshift theater. "This here's a robbery." Sophia froze mid-scene, still dressed in her Juliet costume, the white fabric billowing around her slender frame as she watched 5 men with bandanas covering their faces storm the aisles. The small audience of miners, ranchers, and townsfolk sat paralyzed as the bandits brandished their revolvers. "Empty your pockets," barked the tallest bandit, his eyes cold beneath the shadow of his hat. "Jewelry, cash, anything valuable. Now." Screams erupted as people scrambled to comply, but Sophia remained still, her blue eyes fixed on the leader. She had traveled too far, worked too hard to see her company's earnings stolen by these outlaws. "The box office money stays where it is," she said, her voice stronger than she felt. "These good people paid to see art, not violence." The leader turned his gaze to her, chuckling darkly. "Well, well, looks like we got ourselves a brave little actress." He stepped closer to the stage, gun pointed at her chest. "You don't seem to understand the situation, miss. We ain't asking." The other members of her company cowered at the edges of the stage, but Sophia stood her ground, even as her knees threatened to buckle beneath her. She had faced hardship before, orphaned at 16, making her way west with nothing but determination and talent, but never stared death in the face so directly. "I understand perfectly," she replied, proud that her voice didn't waver. "I understand that you're nothing but cowards who prey on honest folk." The bandit cocked his gun. "Last chance, lady." Just as the tension reached its breaking point, the theater doors burst open with a thunderous crack. A tall figure silhouetted against the fading daylight stood in the doorway, a Winchester rifle raised and ready. "Drop your weapons," commanded a deep, steady voice that seemed to fill the entire hall. The lady said no. The bandits whirled around, momentarily forgetting Sophia as they faced this new threat. The stranger stepped forward into the lamplight, revealing a dust-covered duster coat, worn boots, and eyes that burned with quiet fury beneath the brim of his hat. "Who the hell are you?" snarled the lead bandit. The man took another step, his movement fluid and controlled, like a mountain lion stalking its prey. "Name's August Fletcher, and that stage is now under my protection." Sophia felt her breath catch as she watched this stranger August face down 5 armed men without so much as a tremor in his stance. The bandits hesitated, their confidence visibly faltering as they assessed the newcomer. There was something in his eyes that spoke of battles fought and won, of a man who didn't make empty threats. "You're outnumbered, mister," the leader said, though his voice had lost some of its conviction. August Fletcher didn't blink. "I'm giving you one chance to walk out of here. Take it." For a tense moment, Sophia thought the bandits would open fire. Then, almost imperceptibly, the leader nodded to his men. They began backing toward a side exit, guns still trained on August. "This ain't over," the leader promised before disappearing into the evening shadows, his men following close behind. As they vanished, a collective exhale swept through the theater. People began murmuring, some crying with relief. Sophia felt her legs finally give way as she sank to her knees on the stage, the adrenaline draining from her body and leaving her shaking. August Fletcher secured his rifle and approached the stage, his spurs jingling softly with each step. Up close, Sophia could see the weathered lines around his eyes, the small scar that ran along his jawline and the gentleness that belied his dangerous demeanor. "Are you hurt, madam?" he asked, removing his hat in a gesture of respect. Sophia shook her head, suddenly aware of how disheveled she must look. "No, thanks to you, Mr. Fletcher. I don't know how to repay such bravery." "No need," he replied, offering his hand to help her up. "I've never much cared for bullies, especially ones who interrupt Shakespeare." His hand was rough with calluses but warm as it enveloped hers, pulling her easily to her feet. For a moment, they stood there, connected by more than just their clasped hands, connected by the strange magic that sometimes happens when fate throws two strangers together in the most unexpected of circumstances. "You know Shakespeare?" she asked, unable to hide her surprise. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Enough to recognize Romeo and Juliet when I see it. You make a convincing Juliet, Miss Bell. Sophia Bell," she answered, finding herself reluctant to let go of his hand. "I own the Wandering Star Theater Company. We're performing in Santa Rosa for the month." August nodded, finally releasing her hand. "Well, Miss Bell, I suspect those men might return with reinforcements. Would you allow me to escort you and your company back to your lodgings?" Before she could answer, the town sheriff finally arrived, red-faced and out of breath. After a brief explanation of events and promises to increase patrols around the theater, August's offer of protection seemed even more necessary. As the theater emptied and her company gathered their belongings, Sophia found herself watching August Fletcher from the corner of her eye. He moved with purpose, checking windows and doorways, speaking quietly with the sheriff. There was a story there in the way he held himself, in the shadows behind his eyes. A story perhaps as complex as the one she brought to life on stage. "Your guardian angel seems quite capable," whispered Margaret, Sophia's costume mistress and closest friend in the company. "And not hard on the eyes, either." Sophia felt a blush warm her cheeks. "He's simply being gallant, Margaret, nothing more." "Of course," Margaret replied with a knowing smile, just as Juliet was simply being polite to Romeo. Before Sophia could protest further, August approached them again. "Sheriff's posted a man outside, but I'd still feel better seeing you folks safely to your hotel." The company had taken rooms at the Santa Rosa Inn, a modest establishment a few blocks from the town hall. As they walked through the quiet streets, Sophia found herself beside August, curious about the man who had appeared from nowhere at precisely the right moment. "Are you passing through Santa Rosa, Mr. Fletcher?" she asked. "August, please," he corrected gently. "And yes, I arrived this afternoon. Heard there was a theater show and thought I'd taken some culture." He glanced down at her with that same ghost of a smile. "Didn't expect to be part of the performance." "An unexpected final act," Sophia agreed. "What brings you to town, if I might ask?" "Business?" August was quiet for a moment, his expression unreadable in the dim lamplight of the street. "Of a sort, I'm tracking someone." "You're a lawman," she pressed, intrigued. "Not exactly, not anymore." He adjusted his hat slightly. "Let's just say I'm settling an old debt." There was a finality to his tone that discouraged further questions, but Sophia couldn't help feeling drawn to the mystery of him. In her years on the stage, she had become adept at reading people, at seeing the stories they carried. August Fletcher carried his like armor, visible in the set of his shoulders and the vigilance of his gaze. They reached the inn without incident, the warm glow of the windows a welcome sight after the evening's terror. As the company filed inside, Sophia lingered on the porch with August. "Will you be staying in Santa Rosa long?" she asked, surprising herself with how much she hoped the answer would be yes. August looked out at the dark street, his profile strong against the lamplight. "I hadn't planned on it, but now I'm thinking I might extend my stay." He turned to her, his eyes serious. "Those men targeted your show specifically. That doesn't sit right with me." A chill ran through Sophia that had nothing to do with the evening air. "You think they'll come back?" "I think someone sent them," he replied. "And until I know who and why, I'd like to keep an eye on things, if that's all right with you." Relief and something warmer flooded through her. "We have another performance tomorrow evening. Perhaps you'd care to attend properly this time." August's smile became more pronounced, transforming his face. "I'd like that, Miss Bell." "Sophia, please," she said, returning his smile. He nodded, placing his hat back on his head. "Good night, Sophia. Lock your doors." As he turned to leave, Sophia called after him. "Where are you staying?" "In case we need to find you." August pointed to the saloon across the street. "Got a room above the Silver Dollar. I'm a light sleeper." Watching him cross the dusty street, his tall figure soon swallowed by the shadows, Sophia felt an unexpected pang of longing. There was something about August Fletcher that called to her, something beyond his timely heroics or his handsome features. Inside the inn, Margaret waited with knowing eyes. "Well, what?" Sophia asked, removing her shawl. "Don't play coy, Sophia Bell. I've known you since we both joined Thornton's troupe in Chicago. That man has caught your interest like no other has." Sophia couldn't deny it. "He's intriguing." "He's dangerous," Margaret corrected, but without judgment. "Men like that always are. They live by different rules." "Perhaps," Sophia acknowledged, thinking of the quiet confidence in August's stance as he faced down 5 armed men. "But tonight, I'm grateful for it." Sleep did not come easily that night. Sophia lay awake, replaying the evening's events, hearing the echo of gunshots and August's steady voice claiming her protection. Outside, the occasional sound of hoofbeats or distant laughter from the saloon drifted through her window. Santa Rosa had seemed like just another stop on their touring schedule, a week or two of performances, before moving on to the next frontier town hungry for entertainment. Now, it felt like the beginning of something she couldn't yet name. As dawn began to lighten the sky, Sophia finally drifted off, her dreams filled with bandits, Shakespeare, and a pair of watchful eyes that promised safety in a world suddenly turned dangerous. The next morning arrived with golden California sunshine streaming through the lace curtains of Sophia's room. Despite her restless night, she woke with a strange energy pulsing through her veins. Yesterday's terror had crystallized into something like determination. Her company would perform as scheduled. She wouldn't be intimidated. After dressing in a simple blue day dress, Sophia made her way downstairs to the inn's small dining room where most of her company had already gathered for breakfast. Conversations hushed as she entered, worried glances exchanged. "Good morning," she said with forced brightness. "I trust everyone slept well." Thomas Parker, who played Romeo to her Juliet, snorted. "As well as can be expected after having guns waved in our faces." "About that," Sophia said, taking a seat and accepting a cup of coffee from the innkeeper's wife. "I've been thinking, we should continue with tonight's performance as planned." A chorus of protests erupted around the table. "Are you mad?" Margaret demanded. "Those bandits could return." "The sheriff has promised extra protection," Sophia reminded them. And she hesitated, unsure why she felt a flush creeping up her neck. "Mr. Fletcher has offered to keep watch as well." Thomas raised an eyebrow. "The gunslinger, and we're trusting him. Why exactly?" "He appeared rather conveniently, didn't he?" "He saved our lives," Sophia said sharply. "He did," agreed Edward Miller, their company manager and occasional actor for smaller roles. "And I, for one, am grateful. But Thomas raises a fair point. We know nothing about this man." Before Sophia could defend August further, the inn's door opened, and the subject of their conversation stepped inside, removing his hat as he crossed the threshold. The morning light revealed details Sophia had missed in the dimness of the previous night: the sun-bronzed skin, the flecks of gray at his temples despite his relatively young age, perhaps early 30s, and the way his eyes scanned the room before settling on her with unmistakable relief. "Miss Bell," he said with a nod, "I hope I'm not interrupting." Sophia stood, aware of every eye in the room upon them. "Not at all, Mr. Fletcher. August, please join us for breakfast." He hesitated before accepting, taking the empty chair beside her. The innkeeper's wife hurried to bring him coffee and a plate of eggs and bacon. "I spoke with the sheriff this morning," August said, his voice low enough that only their table could hear. "He's questioning some of the local troublemakers, but no sign of our bandits from last night." "Our company was just discussing whether to proceed with tonight's performance," Edward said, studying August with undisguised curiosity. "Perhaps you'd care to weigh in, Mr. Fletcher, given your expertise in these matters." August took a sip of his coffee before answering. "I think canceling would send the wrong message. Whoever sent those men would know they succeeded in frightening you." "Sent them?" Thomas repeated. "You believe this wasn't a random robbery? Bandits looking for easy money target stage coaches, banks, or saloons on payday," August explained. "Not theater performances in small towns. This was deliberate." A chill settled over the table as his words sank in. Sophia found herself wondering who would target her small company. They were hardly wealthy or influential. "But why?" she asked, meeting August's steady gaze. "That's what I aim to find out," he replied. "In the meantime, I think you should continue as normal but with precautions. I'll be there tonight, and I've asked a few friends passing through to help keep watch." "Friends?" Edward asked. "More men like yourself?" August's mouth quirked in what might have been amusement. "More or less. Good men I trust with my life and yours." After breakfast, August offered to accompany Sophia to the theater for the day's rehearsals. As they walked through the morning bustle of Santa Rosa, Sophia found herself studying her silent companion. "You never did tell me what you do, August," she ventured. "Besides rescuing theater companies in distress." He chuckled, the sound warm and unexpected. "I was a lawman for a while. U.S. Marshal. Now I do various jobs, some tracking, some protection work." "A gun for hire?" Sophia asked, trying to keep the judgment from her voice. August glanced at her, his expression unreadable. "Not exactly. I choose my jobs carefully, and I don't kill for money." "But you have killed," she said softly. It wasn't a question. He was quiet for several steps. "Yes." Sophia nodded, absorbing this confirmation of what she had already sensed. "Thank you for your honesty." "Does it frighten you?" he asked, his tone casual but his eyes watchful. "Should it?" "Most people think so." Sophia considered this as they approached the town hall. "I grew up in Boston with all the comforts and protections of city life," she finally said. "When my parents died of influenza, I was 16. I joined a theater company to survive, and I've been traveling ever since. I've seen enough of the frontier to know that sometimes survival requires difficult choices." August studied her with new respect. "That's an uncommon perspective for a lady of your background." "I stopped being that lady a long time ago," Sophia replied with a small smile. "Now, would you like to see a proper rehearsal of Romeo and Juliet?" Without the gunplay interruption. Inside the town hall, Sophia's company was already setting up, their earlier fears seemingly forgotten in the familiar routine of theater work. August found a seat in the back row, content to watch as Sophia transformed from the collected woman beside him into the passionate young Juliet. Throughout the morning, he observed her with growing fascination. On stage, She became someone else entirely vibrant, emotional, commanding attention with every gesture. Her voice carried to the rafters in the dramatic scenes and softened to an intimate whisper for the love poems that had always felt excessive to him when he'd read Shakespeare as a young man. From her lips, they sounded like truth. During a break, Sophia approached where he sat, slightly breathless from the balcony scene. "Well, what do you think?" "I think I've been missing something, avoiding the theater all these years," he admitted. "You're quite remarkable up there." A blush colored her cheeks at his praise. "Theater has always been my salvation. When everything else was taken from me, I still had these words, these stories." She gestured toward the stage. "They've carried me across the country." "Why Shakespeare?" August asked, genuinely curious. "Out here, most folks would prefer something simpler. Because even the simplest miner or farmer understands love, jealousy, ambition, and redemption," Sophia replied without hesitation. "Shakespeare speaks to the heart of human experience. Everyone deserves beauty and truth, not just those in fancy Eastern theaters." August found himself smiling at her passion. "A noble mission. And yours," she countered. "You mentioned tracking someone, settling a debt. Is it vengeance that drives you?" The directness of her question startled him. Most people wouldn't dare ask, intimidated by his reputation or appearance. But Sophia Bell looked at him as if she could see right through the careful walls he'd built around himself. "Justice," he finally said, "though some might call it vengeance." Before she could press further, Edward called her back to the stage. As rehearsal resumed, August slipped out to check the perimeter of the building, his instincts telling him that the danger was far from past. Outside, the day had warmed considerably. August circled the town hall, noting possible entry points and vantage spots where lookouts could be posted. As he rounded the back of the building, he spotted a man loitering near the stage door, smoking a cigarette. August approached casually, hand resting near his holstered revolver. "Help you with something, friend?" the man started, then recovered with a nervous smile. "Just waiting for someone. One of the actors." "Yeah, the Juliet lady." The man took a final drag of his cigarette before flicking it away. "Got a message for her." August's instincts sharpened. "I can deliver it." The man shook his head, backing away slightly. "Suppose to give it to her personally. I'll come back later." Before August could stop him, the man turned and hurried away, disappearing around a corner. August considered pursuing him but thought better of it. Better to stay close to Sophia. When he returned inside, rehearsal was winding down. Sophia spotted him and frowned slightly at his expression. "What's wrong?" she asked quietly, joining him at the back of the hall. "There was a man outside asking for you. Said he had a message." Sophia paled slightly. "What kind of message?" He didn't say. "Left when I offered to take it for you." August studied her face. "Is there someone who might wish you harm, Sophia? An old suitor, perhaps? A business rivalry?" She shook her head, genuinely perplexed. "No one I can think of. Our company keeps to itself, performs our shows, and moves on. We're hardly controversial." "What about your last stop before Santa Rosa? Any trouble there?" "Sacramento," Sophia replied, thinking. "The performances went well, there was." She hesitated. "There was a wealthy man, a Mr. Harrington, who attended every night. He sent flowers, invitations to dinner. I declined politely." "Was he persistent?" "Uncomfortably so," she admitted. "But surely he wouldn't." She trailed off, looking troubled by the possibility. August touched her arm gently. "It might be nothing, but I'd like you to be careful. Don't go anywhere alone until we sort this out." The concern in his voice warmed her despite the circumstances. "Are all your protection jobs this thorough, Mr. Fletcher?" A shadow passed across his features. "Only the ones that matter." Their eyes held for a moment longer than necessary, and Sophia felt something shift between them, a recognition of mutual interest that both thrilled and terrified her. In her years on the stage, she had learned to guard her heart carefully. Theater people lived transient lives, and a woman in her position couldn't afford romantic entanglements that might jeopardize her company or reputation. Yet there was something about August Fletcher that made her wonder what it might be like to stop running, to find roots somewhere with someone who understood the complexities of a life lived outside conventional boundaries. "Tonight's performance begins at 7, she said, breaking the moment. "Will your friends be here by then?" August nodded. "They'll be scattered throughout the audience and outside. You won't even notice them. And you, will you be watching from the shadows as well?" His lips curved upward. "I've been promised a front row seat to Romeo and Juliet. I intend to claim it." As they left the town hall together, Sophia was acutely aware of August's protective presence beside her, of the occasional brush of his arm against hers as they navigated the increasingly busy streets. It was nearly noon, and Santa Rosa had come fully to life, with shoppers, businessmen, and laborers filling the wooden sidewalks. "I should return to the inn," Sophia said as they approached the town square. "We have costume adjustments before tonight." August nodded. "I have some arrangements to make. I'll escort you back first." As they turned down a side street, a shot rang out. August's reaction was instantaneous. He pulled Sophia against the nearest building, shielding her with his body as his hand went to his revolver. "Are you hit?" he asked urgently, his eyes scanning her for injuries even as he kept watch on the street. "No," Sophia gasped, heart pounding wildly against her ribs. "Where did it come from?" August eased away from her slightly, drawing his weapon. "Stay here, don't move." Before she could protest, he had slipped away, moving with the fluid grace of a predator. Sophia pressed herself against the wall, trying to control her breathing as she strained to see what was happening. The street had emptied at the sound of gunfire, shoppers and pedestrians diving for cover or fleeing the area. In the sudden silence, Sophia could hear the distant shouts of men and the pounding of running feet. After what seemed an eternity but was probably only minutes, August reappeared, holstering his weapon with a grim expression. "Did you find the shooter?" Sophia asked, relief flooding her at the sight of him unharmed. "No, he was gone by the time I got there." August's jaw tightened. "But I found this." He held up a piece of paper. It was pinned to a post with a knife, right where that shot was aimed. Sophia took the paper with trembling fingers and read the crude message scrawled across it. "Leave Santa Rosa or the next bullet finds its mark." "This is madness," she whispered. "Why would anyone want us gone this badly?" August took the note back, folding it carefully and tucking it into his vest pocket. "I don't know, but I intend to find out." His expression softened as he looked at her pale face. "Are you sure you want to go through with tonight's performance?" Sophia straightened her shoulders, a flash of defiance overcoming her fear. "More than ever. I won't be frightened away by cowards who won't even show their faces." A small smile of admiration touched August's lips. "I thought you might say that. Come on, let's get you back to the inn. We'll need to change our approach for tonight." By the time evening fell, the town hall had been transformed. Lanterns glowed warmly, illuminating the makeshift stage where Sophia's company would perform. Despite the morning's violence, word of the previous night's interrupted performance had spread, drawing an even larger crowd curious to see both the show and perhaps some additional excitement. Hidden among the audience were 3 men August trusted with his life, former fellow marshals who happened to be passing through California on various business. Outside, 2 more kept watch on the building's perimeter. Backstage, Sophia adjusted her costume one final time, her stomach fluttering with a mixture of normal pre-performance nerves and heightened awareness of the danger that might be lurking. Margaret helped pin a few stray curls back into place, her expression worried. "Are you certain this is wise?" Margaret asked softly. "After that shot this morning, the show must go on," Sophia replied with more confidence than she felt. "Besides, we have more protection tonight than the president himself." Margaret snorted delicately. "Yes, your handsome guardian seems quite determined to keep you safe." She gave Sophia a knowing look. "He hasn't taken his eyes off you all day." "He's doing his job," Sophia protested, though she couldn't deny the thrill that ran through her at the thought of August watching her. "If you say so, dear." Margaret patted her shoulder. 5 minutes to curtain." As the company took their positions, Sophia peered through a gap in the curtain. The hall was packed, with standing room only at the back. In the front row, as promised, sat August Fletcher. He had traded his trail-worn clothes for a clean shirt and vest, though his revolver remained visibly holstered at his side. Their eyes met briefly across the distance, and he gave her a slight nod of reassurance. Drawing a deep breath, Sophia stepped back and centered herself. Whatever dangers lurked outside, for the next 2 hours, she would be Juliet Young, passionate and willing to risk everything for love. The performance began without incident. Sophia lost herself in the familiar rhythms of Shakespeare's words, in the tragic love story that had captivated audiences for centuries. As always, the transformation was complete. Her fears, her confusion about August, the mysterious threats all faded away as Juliet came to life through her. During the balcony scene, she found herself unusually aware of August's presence in the audience. When she spoke Juliet's famous lines, "My bounty is as boundless as the sea, my love is deep. The more I give to thee, the more I have, for both are infinite," her eyes inadvertently sought his. The intensity of his gaze sent a warmth spreading through her that had nothing to do with the stuffiness of the crowded hall. The first act concluded without disruption. During the brief intermission, Sophia remained backstage, drinking water and fanning herself in the small dressing area. A soft knock at the door startled her. "Yes, it's August. May I come in?" Sophia adjusted her costume quickly. "Yes, of course." He entered, closing the door behind him. In the small space, his presence seemed even larger, more imposing. Yet his expression was gentle as he surveyed her. "You're magnificent up there," he said simply. Sophia felt her cheeks warm at the compliment. "Thank you. Have you seen anything suspicious?" August shook his head. "Everything's quiet, almost too quiet." He hesitated, then added, "There's a man in the back row, expensive suit, gold watch chain. Keeps watching you specifically, not the whole performance." Sophia's pulse quickened. "What does he look like?" "Older gentleman, gray hair, mustache, sitting alone. Mr. Harrington," she breathed. "From Sacramento." August's expression darkened. "You're sure?" She nodded. "He must have followed us here." "I'll have him removed," August said, turning toward the door. "No," Sophia caught his arm. "Not during the performance. It would cause a scene, and if he is behind these threats, it might provoke him further." She squeezed his arm gently. "Let me finish the play. Then we can confront him." August clearly didn't like it, but he nodded reluctantly. "My friends are watching him now. He won't leave without us knowing." He covered her hand with his own where it rested on his arm. "Be careful out there." "Always," she promised. As he turned to leave, Sophia found herself calling after him. "August, in the final scene, watch for me." A question formed in his eyes, but he simply nodded before slipping out. The second act began with renewed energy. Sophia poured everything into her performance, aware that this might be her last chance to perform in Santa Rosa if the threats continued. The tragedy unfolded as it always did: misunderstandings, banishment, desperate plans, and finally, the tomb scene where both lovers would die rather than live without each other. As Sophia delivered Juliet's final monologue over Romeo's seemingly dead body, she found her emotions unusually close to the surface. The words about living in a world without love resonated differently tonight, with August watching from the audience. When she took up the prop dagger for Juliet's suicide, the gasps from the audience seemed more genuine than usual. "O happy dagger, this is thy sheath," she cried, bringing the blunted stage knife to her chest. "There rust and let me die." As she collapsed over Thomas's body, completing the tragic tableau, Sophia was surprised to feel genuine tears on her cheeks. When she rose for the curtain call minutes later, the audience erupted in applause and cheers, many rising to their feet in appreciation. Amidst the celebration, Sophia's eyes sought August's. He stood at the edge of the stage now, clapping with the others, but his expression held something beyond simple appreciation, a mixture of awe and something deeper that made her breath catch. The applause continued as the company took their bows. Just as Sophia stepped forward for her final curtsy, a commotion erupted at the back of the hall. She straightened to see Mr. Harrington being forcibly restrained by two of August's friends while the audience turned in confusion. "She belongs to me," Harrington shouted, his refined facade cracking as he struggled against the men holding him. "I made her. I discovered her." August was on the stage in an instant, positioning himself protectively in front of Sophia as Harrington continued to shout. "I funded your first company in San Francisco. I pulled strings to get you theater spaces, and this is how you repay me. By running off with these amateurs." Sophia stared in shock, the blood draining from her face. "I've never performed in San Francisco," she said, loud enough for the hall to hear. "And I've never met you before Sacramento." Harrington's face contorted with rage. "Liar! Sarah, how can you deny what we had?" A murmur ran through the crowd as confusion spread. August's hand went to his gun, but Sophia placed a restraining touch on his arm. "My name is Sophia Bell," she said clearly. "Not Sarah. You have mistaken me for someone else." The color drained from Harrington's face as realization slowly dawned. His struggles ceased as he stared at her with new eyes. "Not Sarah Barrett?" he asked, his voice suddenly uncertain. "No, sir. I am Sophia Bell of Boston, now of wherever my company performs." She stepped forward, August moving with her protectively. "I believe you owe me and my company an apology for the fear and danger you have caused us." Harrington sagged in the grip of the men holding him. "I thought, you look so much like her. Sarah left me, took my money, my jewelry, disappeared. When I saw you in Sacramento, I was certain." The sheriff pushed through the crowd then, alerted by the disturbance. "What's going on here?" August explained the situation quickly while Sophia tried to calm the audience and her fellow actors. As the sheriff took Harrington away for questioning about the bandits and the morning's gunshot, the crowd began to disperse, buzzing with excitement at the real-life drama that had accompanied their evening's entertainment. When the hall had emptied except for Sophia's company and August's friends, Sophia sank onto the edge of the stage, suddenly exhausted. "Are you all right?" August asked, sitting beside her. "I think so," she replied, running a hand through her stage-tousled hair. "Just trying to process it all. That poor man, thinking I was someone who wronged him." "Poor man," August repeated incredulously. "He sent armed men to terrorize you. He shot at you." "Not at me," Sophia corrected gently. "At Sarah, whoever she is. He was blinded by his pain." She sighed. "I can't condone what he did, but I can understand how love might drive someone to desperate acts." August studied her with wonder. "You're an extraordinary woman, Sophia Bell." She smiled tiredly. "I'm an actress, August. I live in the minds and hearts of people driven by passion for good or ill. It helps me understand the human condition." They sat in companionable silence for a moment, watching as the company began striking the set and packing costumes. "What happens now?" Sophia finally asked. August rubbed his jaw thoughtfully. "The sheriff will hold Harrington until the circuit judge arrives next week. He'll likely face charges for hiring those bandits at minimum. And you," she pressed softly, "now that your protection job is complete." His eyes met hers, searching. "That depends on whether there might be a reason for me to stay in Santa Rosa a while longer." Sophia felt her heart quicken at his words, at the tentative question in his gaze. "Our company is scheduled to perform for another week," she said carefully. "After that, we move on to Petaluma." "And if someone wanted to accompany your company?" August asked, his voice low. "Someone who's grown rather fond of Shakespeare recently." A smile bloomed across Sophia's face. "I think we might be able to accommodate such a person. We're always looking for strong backs to help with the sets." "And security, of course." August chuckled, the sound warming her more than it should. "Of course." He hesitated, then reached for her hand, enfolding it in his larger one. "I haven't felt this way in a long time, Sophia, haven't allowed myself to." "Nor I," she admitted. "Our lives are complicated." "Mine more than most," he agreed solemnly. "There are things about my past, about what I'm doing now, that I should tell you before this goes any further." Sophia squeezed his hand. "Tonight has been eventful enough. Perhaps those conversations can wait for morning." Relief flickered across his features. "I'd like that." As they stood to join the others, August kept her hand in his. In that simple connection, Sophia felt possibilities opening before her like pages in a new script, unexpected, perhaps dangerous, but filled with promise. The following morning dawned clear and bright, the kind of California day that made Sophia understand why so many had risked everything to come west. She dressed with particular care, selecting a pale green day dress that she knew complemented her auburn hair, before heading downstairs to meet August. He waited in the inn's small parlor, hat in hand, looking somewhat out of place among the doilies and feminine furnishings. When she entered, he stood immediately, and she was struck again by how he commanded attention without effort, tall, broad-shouldered, his presence filling the room in a way that had nothing to do with physical size. "Good morning," she greeted him, suddenly shy despite the connection they had shared the previous night. "Morning," he replied, his eyes taking in her appearance with obvious appreciation. "You look lovely." "Thank you." Sophia gestured toward the door. "Shall we walk? I find I think more clearly in the open air." They strolled through Santa Rosa in companionable silence, the town already bustling with morning activities. Miners and laborers headed to work, shopkeepers swept their storefronts, and the delicious smell of fresh bread wafted from the bakery they passed. August led her toward a small park at the edge of town, where a few benches overlooked a meandering creek. As they sat, Sophia could see he was gathering his thoughts, preparing for a conversation that clearly weighed on him. "Before I came to Santa Rosa," he began, "I was tracking a man named James Wilson. He and his brother were part of a gang that raided settlements along the Nevada-California border 3 years ago." Sophia nodded, encouraging him to continue. "During one of those raids, they attacked a homestead outside Carson City. A family was living there, a man, his wife, and their young daughter." August's voice tightened. "The men killed the father when he tried to protect his wife. Then they—" He paused, jaw clenching. "You don't need to say it," Sophia said softly, understanding the horror he couldn't bring himself to describe. August nodded gratefully. "I was a marshal then. My partner and I had been tracking the gang for months. We arrived just after, his hands clenched into fists on his knees. The mother was dead. The child was hiding in a root cellar. She saw everything. "Oh, August," Sophia whispered, her heart breaking for the child and for the man beside her who clearly carried this burden heavily. "We captured or killed most of the gang, but the Wilson brothers escaped. My partner and I swore we'd find them." His eyes met hers, hard with determination. "When I left the marshals, I kept looking. My partner, David, was killed last year by Henry Wilson outside Tucson. I got Henry, but James disappeared again. Last month, I heard rumors he was heading to California, to Santa Rosa." Understanding dawned on Sophia. "That's why you're here. You're hunting him." August nodded. "I've spent 3 years tracking this man, Sophia. I won't stop until I find him and bring him to justice one way or another." "And when you do," she asked, "what then?" He looked out at the creek, sunlight dancing on the water. "I don't know. I haven't thought beyond that moment." His gaze returned to her, softening. "Until recently, I didn't have reason to." The implication hung between them, fragile and full of promise. Sophia reached for his hand, covering it with her own. "Thank you for telling me," she said, "for trusting me with this." August turned his hand to clasp hers. "You deserve to know what kind of man you're." He trailed off, uncertain how to define what was growing between them, getting involved with. Sophia supplied with a small smile. "Is that what we're doing?" he asked, a hint of vulnerability in his question that touched her deeply. "I believe we are," she replied softly, "if you want to be." His answer came not in words but in action. August reached up to brush a strand of hair from her face, his fingers lingering against her cheek. Slowly, giving her every opportunity to pull away, he leaned forward until his lips met hers in a kiss so tender it brought tears to her eyes. When they parted, Sophia felt as though something fundamental had shifted within her, as if she had been waiting for this man, this moment, without knowing it. "I should warn you," she said, her voice slightly breathless, "that loving a theater woman isn't easy. We're stubborn, dramatic, and rarely in one place for long." August smiled, the expression transforming his serious face. "And I should warn you that loving a former lawman with a vendetta isn't exactly simple either." "Perhaps," Sophia mused, "we're perfectly matched in our complications." They spent the rest of the morning talking, sharing the stories that had shaped them. Sophia told him about her privileged Boston upbringing, the devastation of losing both parents within a week to influenza, and how joining a traveling theater company had saved her from destitution, and taught her strength she never knew she possessed. August spoke of growing up on a small farm in Missouri, losing his parents to raiders during the chaos of the Civil War, and finding purpose as a lawman in the expanding West. He talked about the justice he believed in, the lines he wouldn't cross, and the loneliness of the path he had chosen. As noon approached, they returned to town, walking closer than propriety might strictly allow, their hands occasionally brushing in a way that sent sparks through Sophia's entire body. "Will you come to tonight's performance?" she asked as they neared the inn. "Wouldn't miss it," August promised. "Though I hope it's less eventful than last night's." Sophia laughed, the sound drawing his smile again. "As do I. Romeo and Juliet is tragic enough without adding real-life drama." As they reached the inn's porch, August took her hand properly, raising it to his lips in a gesture that was both old-fashioned and thrilling. "Until tonight." Sophia watched him walk away, her heart lighter than it had been in years despite the complications that still faced them. August had a mission to complete, and she had a company that depended on her leadership and talents. Yet somehow, impossibly, she felt as though they might find a way forward together. That evening's performance went smoothly, the theater now guarded by the sheriff's deputies rather than bandits. August watched from his front row seat, his attention never wavering from the stage. When Sophia delivered Juliet's passionate speeches about love and sacrifice, she found herself speaking the words with new understanding, new depth. After the show, as the audience filed out, August waited for her backstage. Without caring who might see, Sophia went into his arms, allowing herself the luxury of being held by someone who truly saw her for perhaps the first time in her adult life. "Magnificent," he murmured against her hair. "Every time I watch you transform, I'm in awe." "Flatterer," she accused without heat, pulling back to smile up at him. "Never," he replied seriously. "I don't have much use for empty words." Sophia believed him. In the days that followed, as their connection deepened, she came to understand that August Fletcher was a man of absolute integrity, sometimes frustratingly so. He said what he meant, kept his promises, and never pretended to be anything other than what he was. A man with a dark purpose but an honorable heart. Their courtship progressed with surprising speed, born perhaps of the intensity of their first meeting and the awareness that Sophia's company would soon move on. They took daily walks, shared meals, and in the evenings after performances, talked for hours about everything and nothing. August began helping with the physical aspects of the productions, his strength proving invaluable for moving sets and handling the heavier trunks of costumes and props. The company, initially wary of the intimidating gunman, gradually warmed to him as they saw how he looked at Sophia, how he respected their craft and contributed without complaint. Only Margaret seemed to harbor reservations, pulling Sophia aside after a week of this blossoming romance. "You're falling in love with him," she stated without preamble as they sorted costumes one afternoon. Sophia didn't bother denying it. "Yes. What happens when we leave for Petaluma? Or when he finally finds this man he's hunting?" "I don't know," Sophia admitted, folding a velvet cloak with care. "We're still figuring that out," Margaret sighed, her face softening. "I just don't want to see you hurt, dear. Men like August Fletcher don't settle down. They're like wild hawks, magnificent to behold but not meant for cages." "Who says I'm offering a cage?" Sophia countered. "Perhaps I'm simply offering him a place to rest between flights." Despite her brave words, Sophia had been wondering the same things. As their departure date drew nearer, the unresolved questions of their future hung between them, acknowledged but not addressed. The matter came to a head unexpectedly the night before the company was scheduled to leave Santa Rosa. August had invited Sophia to dinner at the nicest restaurant in town, a farewell gesture that filled her with equal parts anticipation and dread. She wore her best dress for the occasion, a deep blue silk that she saved for opening nights in larger towns. August, too, had made an effort, wearing a clean black suit that made him look less like a frontier lawman and more like the kind of gentleman who might escort a lady to dinner without raising eyebrows. The restaurant was small but elegant by frontier standards, with tablecloths and actual wine glasses. As they were seated at a corner table, Sophia noted how August positioned himself to see both the door and windows, a lawman's habit she'd learned that he would probably never break. "You look beautiful," he said after they had ordered, his eyes warm as they took in her appearance. "Thank you," Sophia replied, fingering the stem of her wine glass nervously. August, about tomorrow, he reached across the table to take her hand. "I'm coming with you." Sophia blinked, caught off guard by his directness. To Petaluma, and beyond if you'll have me." His thumb traced circles on the back of her hand. "I received word this morning that James Wilson was seen near Sacramento last week, heading north. I believe he's making for Oregon Territory." "So you're continuing your search?" Sophia said, trying to keep the disappointment from her voice. Yes, August acknowledged, but not alone if you're willing. Your company is traveling the same route I need to take. I can protect you on the road, help with the heavy work, and keep searching. He paused, his expression earnest. I know it's not ideal. I know you deserve more than a man with a mission of vengeance, but I can't let him go, Sophia. I can't dishonor my partner's memory or that family's suffering by giving up. Sophia squeezed his hand. I would never ask you to abandon your principles, August. That integrity is part of what I. She hesitated, then pushed forward. Part of what I love about you. His eyes widened slightly at her admission. You love me. I do, she confirmed, her voice steady despite her racing heart. God help me. I've fallen in love with you in less than 2 weeks. It's terribly improper and probably foolish. I love you too, August interrupted, his voice rough with emotion. I think I have since I saw you standing on that stage defying armed men to protect your company. Joy bloomed in Sophia's chest, bright and unexpected. So what do we do now? Follow your outlaw while performing Shakespeare across the West, a smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. For a start, and when I find Wilson when that chapter is closed. He took a deep breath. Perhaps we could write a new one, together. Together, Sophia repeated, savoring the word. I think I'd like that very much. Later that night, as August walked her back to the inn, the future seemed less daunting than it had before. There were still uncertainties, still complications to navigate, but the knowledge that they would face them together made all the difference. At the inn's porch, August drew her into the shadows, his arms circling her waist as he kissed her with a passion that left her breathless. When they finally parted, he rested his forehead against hers. Until tomorrow, he murmured. Until tomorrow, she echoed, reluctantly stepping away. Be careful walking back, he smiled, touching the brim of his hat. Always am. As Sophia watched him disappear into the night, she felt a sense of peace settle over her. Whatever came next, whether it was hunting an outlaw, performing in frontier towns, or something they couldn't yet imagine, they would face it side by side. The journey to Petaluma passed without incident. August riding alongside the wagons that carried Sophia's company and their equipment. The 2-day trip gave Sophia time to introduce him properly to the dynamics of traveling theater life, the cramped conditions, the constant setting up and tearing down, the camaraderie that developed among people who lived and worked in such close proximity. To her delight, August adapted well, his natural competence and quiet strength earning him respect from even the most skeptical members of the troupe. By the time they reached Petaluma, he had become an unofficial part of the company, helping with everything from pitching tents to handling difficult locals. Their stay in Petaluma stretched to 3 weeks, as their performances proved unexpectedly popular. August continued his discreet inquiries about James Wilson, but the trail remained frustratingly cold. In the meantime, his relationship with Sophia deepened, their evenings together becoming the highlight of both their days. One night, after a particularly successful performance of A Midsummer Night's Dream in which Sophia had played Titania to enthusiastic applause, they walked along the river that ran through town. The moon was full, casting silver light over the water and illuminating Sophia's face as she described her dreams for the company's future. I'd like to establish a permanent theater someday, she confessed. Not immediately. I still love the traveling, the adventure of bringing culture to new places. But eventually, perhaps in San Francisco or even back east, a place where we could develop more complex productions. August listened attentively, as he always did when she spoke of her ambitions. You'd be wonderful at that, he said. You have a vision for theater that goes beyond entertainment. You see it as a way to elevate, to transform. Sophia smiled, touched by his understanding. And you? What dreams do you have beyond finding Wilson? August was quiet for a moment, considering. I haven't allowed myself many dreams, he finally admitted. But lately, I've been thinking I might like to settle somewhere eventually. Perhaps use my skills in a different way as a sheriff in a growing town or even a ranch owner. A rancher? Sophia asked, surprised. I hadn't pictured that. My grandparents had a small place in Missouri before the war, August explained. Some of my happiest memories are from those years, working the land, caring for animals. He looked out over the water. There's an honesty to that life that appeals to me. Sophia could see it suddenly. August on horseback, not tracking outlaws but herding cattle, building something lasting instead of pursuing justice for past wrongs. The image warmed her heart. Would there be room in that future for a theater woman? She asked softly. August turned to her, his expression serious in the moonlight. Sophia, there's no future I want that doesn't include you. He took her hands in his. I know we've known each other a short time. I know our lives are complicated. But I've never been more certain of anything than I am of my feelings for you. Sophia's heart raced as she recognized the gravity of the moment. August, let me finish, he said gently. I'm not asking for promises yet. We both have paths we need to follow for now. But I want you to know that when the time is right, when Wilson is brought to justice, and you're ready to consider a more permanent arrangement, I'll be there, ready to build whatever future you want, wherever you want it. Tears pricked Sophia's eyes at the sincerity in his voice. I believe you, she whispered. And I want that too, a future together when the time is right. He kissed her then, under the moonlight by the river. A kiss that felt like a promise, not a formal engagement, not yet, but an understanding between two people who had found in each other something worth holding on to, worth fighting for. Their idyll in Petaluma couldn't last forever. As September turned to October, the company prepared to move northward to Santa Rosa's larger neighbor, Healdsburg. The night before their departure, August received information that renewed his search with fresh urgency. Wilson was spotted in Healdsburg 3 days ago, he told Sophia as they sat in the small room he had rented above the town's general store. A man matching his description was gambling at the Rusty Nail Saloon. Sophia felt a chill despite the warm evening. So he'll be there when we arrive. Perhaps. August's expression was grim, or he may have moved on already, but it's the closest I've been in months. What will you do when you find him? Sophia asked, voicing the question that had hovered between them since he first told her of his mission. August sighed, running a hand through his hair. Ideally, I'll take him alive to face a judge. He deserves to answer for his crimes properly. His jaw tightened. But he won't come easily, and I won't risk innocent lives to capture him. Sophia nodded, understanding the unspoken reality that August would kill Wilson if necessary, that justice sometimes required hard choices on the frontier. Just promise me you'll be careful, she said, taking his hand. I've grown rather attached to you, Mr. Fletcher. His expression softened as he squeezed her hand. I've noticed, Miss Bell, and I have no intention of disappointing you. The journey to Healdsburg the next day was tense, August more vigilant than usual as they traveled the dusty road north. The town, when they reached it, proved larger than Petaluma, with several saloons, a proper hotel, and a town hall that would serve admirably for their performances. After helping the company settle into their accommodations, a mix of hotel rooms and boarding house spaces, August prepared to begin his search for Wilson. I'll start at the Rusty Nail, he told Sophia as they stood outside the hotel where she would be staying. If he's still in town, someone there will know. Should you go alone? Sophia asked, worry creasing her brow. Your friends from Santa Rosa have their own responsibilities, August finished gently. I'll be fine, Sophia. This isn't my first hunt. She nodded reluctantly. When will I see you again? Tomorrow morning, he promised, brushing a kiss against her forehead. Get some rest. You have rehearsal early. Sophia watched him walk away, his tall figure soon lost among the evening crowds on Healdsburg's Main Street. Despite his confidence, she couldn't shake a sense of foreboding that settled over her like a shroud. Unable to sleep, Sophia spent the evening going over lines for their upcoming performance of Much Ado About Nothing, in which she was to play Beatrice. The witty, independent heroine seemed particularly appropriate now, as Sophia found herself loving a man whose life was filled with danger and uncertainty. Shortly after midnight, a sharp knock at her door startled her. Cautiously, she approached. "Who is it?" she called. "It's Edward," came the reply. "Sophia, there's trouble at the Rusty Nail. August sent for you." Alarm shot through her as she quickly opened the door. Edward Miller stood there, his normally composed face tense with worry. "What's happened? Is he hurt?" "No, but there's been a shooting. He asked me to bring you safely through the back streets." Edward offered his arm. "We should hurry." Throwing a shawl around her shoulders, Sophia followed Edward into the night, her mind racing with terrible possibilities. They moved quickly through Healdsburg's dimly lit side streets, avoiding the main thoroughfare where curious onlookers were already gathering. The Rusty Nail saloon was cordoned off by the town sheriff and his deputies when they arrived. Edward led Sophia to a side entrance where a deputy recognized him and let them pass. Inside, the usual saloon chaos had been replaced by an eerie stillness. Tables were overturned, broken glass littered the floor, and a dark stain that could only be blood spread across the wooden planks near the bar. August stood talking with the sheriff, his expression grave. When he spotted Sophia, relief washed over his features and he quickly crossed to her. "You shouldn't be here," he said quietly, taking her hands. "Edward said you sent for me," Sophia replied, confusion replacing her fear. August's brow furrowed as he glanced at Edward. "I didn't send anyone." A cold feeling settled in Sophia's stomach as she turned to look at Edward, whose face had transformed from concern to calculation. "Edward," she asked uncertainly. "I'm sorry, Sophia," he said, not sounding sorry at all. But James insisted on meeting the woman who's been traveling with August Fletcher. Before either Sophia or August could react, the barrel of a gun pressed against Sophia's back. She froze, fear paralyzing her as a voice she didn't recognize spoke from behind her. "Hello, Fletcher." "Been a long time." August's expression hardened to stone, his hand hovering near his holstered weapon. "Wilson, let her go. This is between you and me." James Wilson chuckled, the sound raising goosebumps on Sophia's skin. "Not anymore, not when you've been stupid enough to fall in love." The gun pressed harder against her spine. "Now we're going to walk out the back door. You make any move toward that gun and your lady friend dies first." "August," Sophia said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Don't." "Quiet," Wilson snapped. "Edward, get his gun." Edward Miller, her company manager, her friend for 3 years, stepped forward and carefully removed August's revolver, looking almost apologetic as he did so. "Why, Edward?" Sophia whispered, betrayal sharp as a knife. "Money," Edward replied simply. "More than I'd make in 20 years of managing traveling players." Wilson began moving backward, dragging Sophia with him. "That's right. Your friend here has been on my payroll since Sacramento. Useful to have eyes on Fletcher's movements." August took a step forward, his eyes never leaving Sophia's. "Whatever quarrel you have with me, Wilson, it doesn't involve her. Let her go and I'll come quietly." "Noble to the end," Wilson mocked, but I think I'll keep her. Insurance, you understand." They reached the back door, Edward moving ahead to check that the way was clear. In that moment of distraction, Sophia locked eyes with August, trying to communicate without words. His almost imperceptible nod told her he understood. As Edward opened the door, Sophia suddenly went limp, dropping her full weight downward. Surprised, Wilson struggled to hold her up, his gun momentarily wavering from its target. August moved with lightning speed, drawing a small derringer from his boot and firing in one fluid motion. The shot caught Wilson in the shoulder, spinning him away from Sophia. Edward turned at the commotion, raising August's stolen gun, but too late. August was already upon him, disarming him with a powerful blow. The sheriff and his deputies burst through the door at the sound of gunfire. Wilson lay groaning on the floor, clutching his bleeding shoulder, while Edward stood with his hands raised in surrender. August ignored them both, rushing to Sophia, who had fallen in the chaos. "Are you hurt?" he asked urgently, helping her to her feet. "No," she managed, though her legs felt like water. "Just shaken." He pulled her against his chest, his arms wrapping around her protectively. "I'm sorry," he murmured against her hair. "I never meant for you to be in danger." Sophia clung to him, the solid strength of him anchoring her as reality threatened to spin away. "What happened here tonight? Before we arrived?" Wilson shot a man at the bar, an innocent bystander who looked at him wrong, August explained grimly. "I'd been watching him all evening, waiting for the right moment to approach. When the shooting started, he slipped out in the confusion. I was helping the sheriff when you arrived." The sheriff approached them then, tipping his hat respectfully to Sophia. "Madam, you all right?" She nodded, still wrapped in August's protective embrace. "Yes, Sheriff, thank you. We'll need statements from both of you," the sheriff continued. "But it can wait till morning. Mr. Fletcher here has been mighty helpful explaining who these men are and why they're wanted." As the deputies led Wilson and Edward away, Sophia felt the tension begin to drain from August's body. He looked down at her, his eyes reflecting a mixture of relief and lingering fear. "It's over," he said quietly. "After 3 years, it's finally over." Sophia reached up to touch his face, tracing the line of his jaw. "Your mission is complete." "Yes." Something shifted in his expression then, a weight lifting. "Now we can begin that new chapter we talked about, if you still want to." Despite the blood and chaos surrounding them, despite the betrayal and danger of the night, Sophia found herself smiling. "I want to," she assured him. "More than ever." The aftermath of that night proved complex but ultimately healing. Sophia's company was shocked by Edward's betrayal, but rallied around their leader with renewed loyalty. The planned performances in Healdsburg were postponed for a week to allow for statements to be given, evidence to be collected, and a new company manager to be appointed. James Wilson and Edward Miller were taken to San Francisco to await trial, the charges against them serious enough to ensure they would not see freedom for many years, if ever. For August, the resolution brought both closure and uncertainty. The mission that had driven him for 3 years was complete, justice served for his partner and for the family whose lives had been destroyed. Now, he faced a future without that driving purpose, a future that could, for the first time, include dreams of his own. 2 weeks after Wilson's capture, with the company's Healdsburg performances drawing to a close, August asked Sophia to join him for a private dinner at the hotel restaurant. "I've been thinking," he said as they lingered over dessert, "about what comes next." Sophia set down her fork, giving him her full attention. "And what conclusions have you reached?" "That I'm tired of hunting," August said simply. "Tired of living in the past, pursuing ghosts." He reached across the table for her hand. "I want a future, Sophia, with you." Her heart quickened at his words. "What kind of future do you envision?" "One where I put my skills to constructive use," he replied. "I've spoken with the sheriff here in Healdsburg. He's recommended me for a position in a growing settlement north of here, near the Russian River. They need a lawman with experience, someone who can help establish order as the town grows." "A sheriff," Sophia clarified, trying to picture August in such a role. He nodded. "For a time, yes. It would give us stability, a place to put down roots." His eyes held hers intently. "And in a few years, perhaps enough savings to buy land, that ranch we talked about." "Us," Sophia repeated softly. "You see me in this future." August's expression turned serious. "I see no future without you in it, Sophia, which is why." He reached into his pocket, producing a small velvet box that made her breath catch. "I wanted to ask you properly." He opened the box to reveal a simple but elegant ring, a small diamond set in gold. "I know your company has more touring planned. I know you're not ready to give up the stage entirely. I would never ask that of you." He took a deep breath. "But I'm asking if you'll marry me, Sophia Bell. If you'll build a life with me, however unconventional it might need to be at first." Tears welled in Sophia's eyes as she looked from the ring to the man offering it, this strong, honorable man who had burst into her life by claiming her protection and had ended up capturing her heart. "Yes," she whispered, then louder. "Yes, August Fletcher, I will marry you." He slipped the ring onto her finger, and then, propriety be damned, leaned across the table to kiss her, oblivious to the smiling stares of the other diners. Later, as they walked beneath the stars, plans and possibilities unfolded between them like a script yet to be performed. Sophia would continue with her company through their scheduled tour, which would bring them back to this area in 6 months. By then, August would be established in his new position, and they would marry. After that, they would create a life that honored both their passions, a home base from which Sophia could still perform seasonally, perhaps establishing that permanent theater someday in a growing town that would appreciate the culture she brought. August would serve as lawman until they had saved enough for land of their own, a dream that suddenly seemed within reach. Their wedding took place the following spring in the town of Guerneville, where August had indeed become sheriff. The ceremony was small but joyful, attended by Sophia's theater company and the new friends August had made in his months of service. Margaret, now the company's manager, wept openly as Sophia and August exchanged vows beneath a canopy of redwoods by the Russian River. If anyone thought it unusual for an actress and a lawman to marry, or questioned how such different souls could find harmony together, they kept such doubts to themselves. The years that followed proved both challenging and deeply rewarding. True to their plan, Sophia continued to perform with her company for seasonal tours, returning home to August in between. During those separations, they wrote to each other faithfully, their letters treasured connections across the miles. In Guerneville, Sophia found unexpected fulfillment in establishing a small community theater, training local young people in the arts she loved. When she wasn't touring, she directed productions that grew more ambitious with each passing year, bringing culture to a town that had once been little more than a logging camp. August thrived as sheriff, his fair-minded approach to justice earning him respect throughout the region. Under his watch, Guerneville grew from a rough settlement to a proper town with schools, churches, and businesses. 3 years after their wedding, they purchased land outside town, a modest ranch with good water and fertile soil. August began raising horses, discovering a talent for breeding and training that soon had buyers coming from as far as San Francisco. In the winter of 1882, their family expanded with the birth of their son, David, named for August's fallen partner. 2 years later, a daughter joined them, Elena, bearing the name of Sophia's mother. Life settled into a rhythm that suited them both, exciting enough to satisfy Sophia's artistic spirit, stable enough to heal August's war-worn soul. Their home became a gathering place for both artists and community leaders, a bridge between worlds that might otherwise never have connected. On a warm evening in the summer of 1885, 10 years after they had met, Sophia and August sat on the porch of their ranch house, watching their children play in the fading light. David, now 7, galloped around the yard on a stick horse, while 3-year-old Elena arranged wildflowers with serious concentration. "You ever regret it?" August asked suddenly, his arm comfortable around Sophia's shoulders. "Regret what?" she asked, leaning into his embrace. "Giving up the full-time stage, the constant travel, the applause." Sophia smiled, watching their son now rescuing his sister from imaginary bandits. "I haven't given up anything essential," she said. "I still perform, I still direct. I've just added other roles that bring different kinds of joy." She looked up at her husband, the years having added distinguished silver at his temples but taken nothing from the strength and kindness in his face. "What about you? Do you miss the hunt, the adventure?" August shook his head, his gaze following their children's play. "Not for a moment. This," he gestured to their home, their land, their family, "this is the greatest adventure, the most worthwhile pursuit." As twilight deepened into dusk, August called the children in for dinner. Watching him lift Elena into his arms while David raced ahead to wash up, Sophia felt a profound gratitude for the unlikely path that had brought them here from a threatened stage in Santa Rosa to this peaceful home by the river. "She's under my protection now," August had declared that night, a stranger stepping between her and danger. He couldn't have known then how completely those words would define their life together, how the initial act of protection would evolve into partnership, love, family, and a shared future neither could have imagined alone. Sophia rose from her chair and went to join her family inside, carrying with her the certainty that some loves truly were, as Shakespeare's Juliet had proclaimed, boundless as the sea growing ever deeper with each passing day.